Welcome to WordPress for Educators, where educators come to learn WordPress. Now in this video, I'm going to show you how to think through the beginning stages of setting up a WordPress website for yourself. In this day and age, it's really important for any professional to have their own website or blog or both that shows who you are, what you're doing currently, what you have done in the past, and then including different pieces of information that are industry specific, like a CV for educators. And I'm going to show you how to do that using a free blog. Now, WordPress started out as a blog system, a blog management system, but has actually grown into a content management system, including pages and posts, blog posts, media. You can actually control things quite easily through a free WordPresscom account. All it requires is that you go to WordPresscom and sign up for a free account, and then from there you can begin to create your website. Now, in web design, what we do mostly is a lot of categorization. We do a lot of the things you might actually find in library science, where we're thinking through the project from the start to the finish. We're thinking through all of the different files that we have to create, and we're trying to lay those files out toward a goal or toward a plan. And we do a lot of file management before we actually start implementing or creating the files themselves. So we're going to take that kind of tact here with WordPress for Educators and just think through a little bit what you want on your website. And when you do that, then using the tool of WordPress, it'll help you to get to that goal of having a website that has all the things on it that you want. So let's do a little bit of pre-planning here, and we'll think about just the things that we want to display on our website. So the first thing that we're going to want to have this is about you, and so we want to have a photograph, a view, and then we're going to want to have your name. We're going to want to have your current position, and we'll also want to have the school of your current position. And then as far as pages and things that we want to display for everyone to be able to click through and see, I think that it's good to have an about page. So this is the different things about you. Maybe you can even include social media on there. It's good to put projects that you're working on or extracurricular things that you're doing to show, especially if they're inside the space or the industry that you want to teach. Another one is we want to have a contact so that people can contact you in some way. With WordPress.com, the contact form just works out of the box. There's nothing that you need to do extra. So that's a really good reason to use WordPress. You could also put your social media links and things like that if you want people to contact you that way, or a direct email address. We also want to have some sort of a CV, and I will show you how to put that together following some guidelines based on an outside or a third-party website. There is no standard for a CV, but this is going to be the main part of your work and what you're putting online. So we're going to have the CV, and then if you are doing any special projects, maybe you would highlight those projects on a particular page. And then I think that's a good start for now. So that'll help us to lay out some of the things that we need to do. And then within each of these, there's going to be some particular pieces of information maybe that we want to put on there. So what we do is if you go to WordPress.com and you don't go to log in, so when you go to WordPress.com, let's see, sign out, and I will show you. WordPress.com is going to look like this when it first comes up. And what you're going to want to do is to create a website and go through all the steps necessary. Now, I've already done that. It's free. And you'll just enter your username, your password, and then you're going to need to name your blog. On naming conventions, I would normally go with try your name first, or try your first name with initial and then last name. Just try to come up with something that's unique. The problem, this is one of the issues with WordPress, is it's so popular that many people have taken the domain name. So if you have a very common name, you're going to have to come up with something a little bit more catchy, maybe spelling out your whole name or using a nickname. But it needs to be something that's recognizable to you. So it might take a little bit of time for you to find the domain name that's good for you. But in the end, it's going to be whatever your name is, .wordpress.com. So I'm going to go ahead and log in. I'm going to assume that we have gotten that we've gotten you to that point in this video. And if it's a problem, you could look to WordPress.com. You can see here that my personal site is jbhaffercamp.wordpress.com. So that was what I had chosen many years ago for my own personal website. And right now we're running WP for Educators. So when it comes out at the end, it's going to say WP for Educators.wordpress.com. For a personal website, I think that's perfectly acceptable. WordPress also has a way for you to buy a URL like yourname.com or .org or .info or .whatever, and you can attach it to your free WordPress website for, I think it's about $15 or $17 a year. So it's that's a relatively standard rate for having a domain name that's yours. So that's also an option as you go along. All right. So when you log in and you get to the back end of WordPress, if you've chosen a theme already, don't worry about it. The theme is like clothes, so you can take them on or put them off very easily. But the information that's underneath, it's not supposed to change. So that's one of the beauties of WordPress, is that the information doesn't change. It's stored into a database, but the presentation or the way it looks can change all around, and you can reconfigure the way it looks without changing all of the information, which is not true for most websites, like when you do HTML or CSS. So you would also have to change a good deal of the information, or you'd have to copy and paste a lot of information in. So this is one of the real strengths of using WordPress, is you can manipulate the way it looks without manipulating the information. So we've separated those two layers. So this is what it looks like when you come to it. This is a new interface, so if you've used WordPress before, this probably looks a little funky. WordPress is moving over. They're changing some of their methodologies and the underlying code that they use. And so this is phase one of changing over into that new space. But they only give you a certain number of things here. This is kind of a pared down menu for WordPress. If you've ever used it before, it used to be quite a bit longer with more things. You can actually get to that by clicking on the WP admin, which is what we're going to do. And I want you to work off of the classic WordPress to create. But when it comes to maintenance, this is a pretty good part because you're going to be able to do most of the things that you need to do with customizing themes or adding pages and blog posts, or even configuring, adding users, or if you want to add a domain like we just talked about that says whatever.com, then you could do that or change some of the settings. But for now, let's click on WP admin. You can see that opens us into this is the old version of the WordPress backend. So this is the classic, what it looks like and what it has looked like for many years now. So you can see that there are quite a few more options here. And when you hover over something, you get more options. So it's all laid out pretty well. What I'm going to try to do in this series of tutorials is to help you have a finished product at the end. So we're going to do it. I'm going to talk you through it, but we're going to be doing it the whole time. So if you've never used WordPress before, all you have to do is watch me and follow along. And through that, I hope that you'll actually learn how to kind of maneuver around the dashboard, figure out what things mean and how we can manipulate things inside of WordPress. And then many of your actions will actually become, they'll become quite repetitive. So it's a very good user interface. So many of the things that you have to do are things that you do in different places. So what you use for posts is actually going to be quite a bit similar to what you use for pages, and how you deal with appearance with widgets and menus is similar to one another as well. So there's a lot of drag and drop elements to the backside dashboard of WordPress, and then there's also just a lot of fields that you just type in, and then the information changes. So they made it as easy as possible to be able to make a complex website, and it's one of the beauties of WordPress, and all this is free. So that's it's an open source project that people have access to the code to make changes or to make their own, and that's actually led to the rise in the popularity of WordPress, and probably why a lot of educators would be interested in it as well. Okay, so that's the setup. In video 2, we're going to get into implementing some of the things that we've talked about here. And I'll also show you some of the theme choices that I personally, as a web developer, believe would fit really well for this particular project of creating a WordPress website for yourself.